Today we are going to get advice. Whoa, did you see that one fly out? Wow. Okay, so today we're going to get advice from Spirit. What I was going to say is we're using the Soul Tree Oracle deck to as kind of a significator of like what the advice is about. So let's, at the bottom here is prosperity. Let's turn this card around and see Tranquility. Oh, wow. I love this. So this is clearly a reading about, obviously, tranquility and prosperity. Huh. Okay. That was wild. It really wanted to fly out. So this, we're going to use the tarot now. We're going to get advice from Spirit for you. Wow. They are jumpy. Okay. So advice from Spirit for you at the time you view this video. Okay. So first things first. I'm sorry. I'm like feeling a bit scattered. Okay. When this came out, I wanted to flip them this way. And as I'm seeing them, the story that wants to come through is definitely that. So I'm flipping them around. Then look at the bottom of this deck is the Empress, which is one of the most abundant cards in the deck. So we've got prosperity and the Empress at the bottom of these decks. So, wow, I love this so much. Give me a second as I figure out how to position these cards. Okay, here we go. Wow. This is already such a fun and beautiful reading. I just love how jumpy the cards were. They just like wanted to talk, and I'm excited to share with you the story that they are telling. So, okay, so the first part of the reading, my apologies, felt like a bit messy. So let me just be clear here. I was using the Soul Tree Oracle to kind of get a theme for the reading about what we're getting advice from Spirit about. What came out was tranquility. At the bottom of the deck was prosperity. And what I'm finding noteworthy is these trees actually look very similar. Like if you look at the rest of this deck, do you see how the trees are very, very different? But don't these trees have like a similarity to them in shape and feeling? I think that, so I think kind of what wants to be said there is, like, this isn't just like tranquility in terms of like just zen out inner peace. And it isn't just prosperity in terms of like just have numbers in your bank account. There's like a real beautiful blending here of like intangible and tangible energy of like prosperity coming from the tranquility that you cultivate in your life, and also tranquility coming from the vein of prosperity that you practice yourself into. And when I say like the vein of prosperity, I don't just mean money. I mean like getting clear about the principles of abundance and prosperity that are in alignment with the principles of the universe and that are in alignment with the principles of nature, and practicing those more and more and more as you cultivate an ecosystem around you. Slash your life is this ecosystem of like creative ecosystems, community ecosystems, maybe quite literally, quite tangibly ecosystems if you are a steward of a garden or a farm. But these ecosystems that naturally and inevitably and sustainably create prosperity. So the advice here that came out was the Queen of Wands, Seven of Cups in reverse, Eight of Wands in reverse, and the Queen of Swords. So there's a really beautiful, cohesive message that is coming to me. And it's first and foremost, or not first and foremost, but kind of like really tapping into powerful, empowered, feminine energy. And maybe as I say this, I might, to finish this reading up, we'll pull a card from the Divine Feminine Oracle to get like a final message in this essence. Because I mean, two queens come out, and they are, I mean, all the queens are empowered, right? But Queen of Wands and Queen of Swords are kind of like bold and cutting, but in a good way, right? Like I mean this in a really positive sense. Like the Queen of Swords is cutting in terms of like she cuts through bullshit. She cuts through veils. She cuts through what is not for her. She cuts energetic cords that are toxic. So I don't mean cutting in like a sense where you're cutting anybody down in order to have like power over them. I mean cutting in a way where you are clearing the way for yourself. You're clearing the clutter. You're cleaning things up. And then the Queen of Wands brings that fiery energy, passion, get things done, things of that nature. So there's definitely, the advice is stepping into or practicing more and more. And then we have the Empress, now that I'm saying that. So like practicing more and more that empowered, powerful, feminine essence, that powerful, empowered, like way of being that doesn't cut you off from your care. Do you know what I'm saying? It's really, really beautiful. And then at the center, we have the Seven of Cups and the Eight of Wands, both in reverse. And I'm really loving the message that this is sending. So Seven of Cups to me is really actually a very personal card in my life. Cups is emotionality, energy. It's the intangibles of life. I am a Pisces creature. And so I am very, very cup energy. I'm very watery. And I've had a really long and arduous journey with understanding that energy within myself. Because if I'm not careful, I can get really sucked in ways that because it's so in my nature, I didn't realize, I'm like a fish in water, like quite literally a Pisces, but like I've had to really have some it's been a long and arduous process of understanding what is a healthy way to be with this, because I can go into major extremes. And the Seven of Cups to me is typically a card. It can represent, like when it's positively aspected, it can represent like dreaming, having a lot of choices, dreaming big, so on and so forth. But when it's negatively aspected, which I typically read it as negatively aspected, it has the toxic energy of fantasy thinking. So maybe having all these great dreams, but not being able to figure out how to ground them into reality. It can be unconsciously regulating your emotions by going into fantasy thinking, right? So I absolutely love that it is showing up in the reverse here, because I think what it's saying is you are more and more letting go of fantasy thinking. And in terms of advice, that's definitely what the card is screaming at me. It wants to be saying is the more you can not let go of your dreams, your visions, and your values, but let go of fantasy thinking. So the way that I discern it in my life, because I don't want to let go of the beautiful, dreamy aspect of myself, right? But I also want my dreams to ground into reality. I don't want to live in fantasies always. So the way that I discern it is I don't want to be regulating my emotions through the fantasy. So I need to do things. So in order for me to keep myself in check in terms of like, am I being healthy or not healthy? I am more and more becoming sensitive to, okay, if I am emotionally dysregulated, I do things in my current reality, in my current body, in current time to regulate myself. So like somatic experiencing practices, I'll do like vagal nerve exercises, things that will regulate my nervous system in my current reality. So my old self used to, when I would get dysregulated, I would go into fantasy thinking about things to try to regulate. So, oh, maybe this will happen, or one day this will be like this, or one day that person will be like this, or one day. And what I realized is it got me out of touch with reality, right? And so as I've been healing over the years, as I've been getting healthier and healthier, I have been really grappling with like, how do you hold on to the big dreams and visions you have without having it become toxic? And so those are some of the like kind of standards I have for myself is I need to make choices. I need to regulate in present time, and I need to make choices not based on fantasy, but based in reality. And I need to, like, both can be true. You can make choices based in reality, and you can hold visions of better, right? And I found that kind of like paradoxical energy has been really healthy for me and has actually paradoxically led me to more and more experiences, more and more daily experiences / bigger experiences of unlocking that which I say I want. Where before, when I was just in the fantasy, using the fantasy inappropriately, I wasn't actually experiencing it except for in my head. Do you know what I mean? And so I think a shift has to happen when we want to go from experiencing things in our fantasies to experiencing them in reality. There's a shift with how we interact with our fantasies that is important. And I think, again, to summarize, what has been helpful for me is I want to make sure I'm not using my fantasies to emotionally regulate. And I want to make sure I'm not using my fantasies as ways to make rash or reckless decisions, but instead to be grounded in my decision making, be powerful and present in my regulation, how I regulate my emotions, and at the same time, hold on to my visions and values as to claiming what is important to me and take the next baby step in alignment with those visions and values. So I just love that that's the essence that's coming out. I think the Eight of Wands in reverse is saying kind of along the similar lines. It's saying don't try to rush anything, because the Eight of Wands upright can be one of the fastest moving cards in the deck. It's a very fast, energetic card. We have the wands again showing up in that red color. But I think what it's saying is when you're trying to make the speed happen arbitrarily versus like sometimes things happen quickly, right? I think it is the nature of the universe to like, there can be big turnarounds and big breakthroughs and things can happen quickly. And when we try to orchestrate them arbitrarily, it usually doesn't work, right? So I think that speed energy, trying to force it, is working against you. And the more you can maybe let yourself let go of that. I'm thinking of a quote by Joshua Rosenthal. He's the founder of Integrative Nutrition, which is a school I went to for holistic health coach training. And one of his quotes that has always stuck with me, and one I still practice as almost like a mantra. Actually, there's two coming to me. One is life is a long time. And the second is go slow to go fast. And I think especially when I first encountered those quotes, I was in a season of my life, I was a very different person than I am now. And I really needed to hear that. And I think it's also like, it's something I need to hear over and over and over again, because our culture is so urgent. We create all these urgencies. Like, well, if you haven't passed, if you didn't do well in first grade, you won't do well in second grade. And then if you don't do well in second grade, like you're not going to get into college. And then, oh my God, you're not, you know what I mean? Like we create all these urgencies all over the place. And then you have to be married by a certain time. And it's like, what are we even doing? Like life is infinite. And each of us is this unique being on this spinning planet. Like why on earth would there be like milestones at a certain time? Like each of us is going to have to go through our own journey. And so I think there's like a detoxing of arbitrary urgency here. And maybe just like a more and more catching of it when you're experiencing it, whatever form it comes in your life. You know what I mean? So yours might be around having kids, or it might be around your kids growing up, or your kids having kids. You see how like if we don't detox the urgency, the arbitrary urgency, the form will just shift. But we like keep ourselves on this like vicious cycle thinking like, well, no, really it is if I get this house. Well, then really it is if I save this amount for retirement. You know what I mean? Like there's like, it'll just shift in form. But when we can detox that arbitrary urgency, then we can tap into what is actually needed for us to get into the vein of sustainable prosperity and sustainable inner peace, healthy, joyful living. So I'm just like loving this message so much. So it's this idea of detoxing fantasy thinking, or noticing how you're using fantasy thinking and using it well. So not using it as a basis for reckless choices, not using it to self-regulate, to emotionally regulate. Instead, using it to help have like a North Star of where you're aiming in terms of your visions and values, so that you can align your day in and day out choices with that, more and more walking yourself home to those visions and values. Then this detoxing of arbitrary urgency. So catching yourself when you're like, oh, I need to do this, catching it and being like, okay, labeling it accurately. That is arbitrary urgency. And then maybe using those quotes that I mentioned as like mantras to calm yourself down a little bit. Life is a long time. Go slow to go fast. Can you just feel like like my voice even dropped. I felt it. It was just like, okay. So when you notice yourself kind of like spinning in your head, you know how like I'm like a person who has a tendency to try to self-regulate by fixating and fixing things. So it's been quite the practice for me over the years of like being willing to feel things. Wow. And as I say that, I'm pretty sure a couple days ago I did a reading where that, or maybe a couple days ago I edited and posted a reading where it was exactly that essence, like going from fixating on fixing to being willing to feel. So what I will do is link that video up in the description box in case there's something there. But what I was going to say is like I used to have, like I used to always think my problems, my life would get fixed by me fixating on fixing. And I tried that route for like a very long time and it didn't work. And believe me, like I really wish it would. Like I kind of extinguished it to the point where I had to be like, this isn't working. And so then I realized I kind of mentioned when I first started, like I needed to get into a different relationship with my flow and my feelings. And I think there is something there where it's like, okay, I can believe the story that there's arbitrary urgency here. I can believe that it's not arbitrary, that it's real. And then I got to fix, and then I got to move forward, and I got to be fast, and I got to or I could be like, wow, I feel really anxious right now. I'm going to do something in the moment with my actual body, maybe breathe deeply, maybe do again some like vagal nerve exercises, some somatic experiencing things to just calm my body down right now in this moment. So I'm not going to try to fix what I think the problem is. I'm going to calm my body down in the moment. And then I'm going to say to myself, like, what if this is arbitrary urgency? What if it is? What if I don't actually know the timeline that is best? And what if life is a long time? And what if I can go slow to go fast? What if I can think more about building ecosystems and legacies instead of being okay next week? Like, do you get what I mean? Of course I want you to be safe and healthy and comforted next week, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Like, I think a lot of times we try to solve problems and we try to make everything okay for a very long time in our head by like this next big choice, or we want this next big breakthrough. And like, what if life is a lot more gentle than that? And what if it's about building more like compound momentum? And what if it's about building ecosystems, not monocultures? And what if it's not all as serious as we think? And what if it all isn't as urgent as we think as well? And I just like definitely getting that sense that writing yourself whenever you can big permission slips that it might not be as urgent as a part of you thinks. And not beating yourself up that you think it's urgent. Like, it makes sense. Again, we live in a culture that is addicted to urgency. But what if it's not true? And what if we can baby step by baby step train ourselves differently to think about it differently? I'm definitely getting that sense here. And then with everything else I already spoke out with the queens, I just really want to point out like the energy of boundaries. And I think it was a few days ago I recorded, I don't think this one was I edited a few days ago. I recorded something where the Queen of Swords came out. And it was all about like what's actually going on behind the problem is like a lack of boundaries, or a greater need to understand boundaries and practice them more. So I'll link up that reading in the description box of this video as well, along with the other one. But I definitely think there's just like a big permission slip, like everybody, but just because you're coming to this, because you're curious about gaining more insight and understanding into your life and yourself, what wants to be said is you deserve to have stronger boundaries. You deserve the comfort that eventually provides, the tranquility and prosperity that eventually provides. Like I believe we talked about in the reading I just mentioned, like it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but it leads to more comfort. And so I think there's like something here about that too, where it's like doing the things that, like, instead of short-term comfort that leads to long-term discomfort, it's like baby step by baby step shifting that to being willing to be less comfortable in the short term, knowing it leads to this long-term comfort, this long-term tranquility, long-term prosperity. So there's this invitation to broaden your your timeline a bit and focus less on short-term comfort, more on enduring long-term comfort for yourself. And in terms of like generations ahead, even if you don't have children, just like the person that you are, the energy that you're emitting, are you, for people ahead of us, the impact you're having on those now, are you aligning with urgency or aligning with tranquility and prosperity, and giving yourself permission to think long-term in your own life, but then also long-term generations ahead, can kind of settle our nervous system a bit and help us realize that we have more choices than we think when we're not operating from quick fantasy thinking sort of a quick fantasy thinking sort of paradigm. So with that said, I love this so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. But before we go, I'm going to grab my Divine Feminine deck and we'll pull one final card from that oracle to hopefully bring this message home. Okay, I'm back. One final message for the viewer, please, at the time they view this video. Ooh. We got Lilith. Look at, she's got that red going on too. The first woman. I am the voice of my body and soul. I choose to live the life I desire. Ooh, I love that. Okay, that's like very much Queen of Wands, Queen of Swords energy. So, oh my gosh, look at under the Empress here. Do you see what came out? The Eight of Pentacles, which is it very much like the Eight of Pentacles to me is exactly what we've been talking about, which is more like just earnest, diligent work. Not like toxic productivity, just like earnest, diligent work that helps you become a better person in general, character-wise, a better person at your craft, that leads to a compound interest sort of experience, but not one that's orchestrated arbitrarily, not one that's orchestrated on arbitrary timelines, but instead one that is in alignment with just the nature of things. So I love that that came out. And okay, so let's read about Lilith here. Okay, so it says, I mean, for it, actually now that I'm like processing this, it is sort of wild that Lilith comes out to kind of clarify this Queen of Wands and Queen of Swords, because it's exactly the energy I was getting, like it's sort of that cutting, bold energy, but again, not cutting in a way that's harmful, like cutting somebody down, but cutting in a way that's like, I am the voice of my body and soul. I have the right to choose for myself. I am the orchestrator of my life. I am the director of my life. And that is good. That is how, in healthy individuals and healthy organizations, that is how things are intended to be. Each of us is the director of our own life. And then we are interdependent, cooperative, collaborative with each other. So let's read about Lilith. It says, Lilith embodies our sovereignty. Oh, sovereignty. Yes. Yes. Sovereignty. That's really what this is about to a certain extent, this reading, right? Tranquility and prosperity. The Empress. There's a sovereignty energy. The Queen of Wands, the Queen of Swords. I love that so much. Okay. Lilith, excuse me. Start again. Lilith embodies our sovereignty to declare our desires and do what must be done in order to live them out. According to Jewish folklore, Lilith was Adam's first wife. She was created from the same earth as Adam. So when he expected her to be subservient to him, she refused. Lilith explained to Adam that they were equal, made by God. So when Adam insisted again on her submission, Lilith uttered the divine names and flew away. Supposedly, Adam sent angels after her to force her to return, but she was with the archangel Samuel, and she desired to remain with him. In the retellings of biblical stories, Lilith is portrayed as a demon, but contemporary feminist theologians like Judith Plaskow have incorporated women's experience and women's voice in traditional texts. Plaskow transformed the fearsome, vilified Lilith into a wise, empowered woman. Lilith embodies the emotional and spiritual aspects of our unconscious or unrealized desires, sensuality, and unbridled sexuality. She owns her body and soul completely. For many women, Lilith is the icon of freedom. Lilith is the first woman. She is the woman who refused to be dominated or defined by anyone or anything outside of herself. Ooh, just got goosebumps. Okay, when your soul selects her card, Lilith asks what would happen if you left everything behind. She wonders what prevents you from getting to experience all that you desire. Is it you? Is it an idea of someone you have to be? Is it society's definition of what it means to be a woman? Lilith asks the questions that sometimes never fully reach the light of consciousness. Lilith is unclaimed. She is the ruler of her body and soul, and she reminds us that we are too. And not only that, she has a sacred obligation to be the body's fierce protector. If I were entirely equal to everyone else, to every man and every angel like Samuel, what would I choose for my life? If I see myself as worthy, as the first woman ever created by the divine, what more would I ask for? Am I living the life I desire? Am I actually fulfilled sexually in my current relationship? Are there aspects of my sexuality I haven't been able to voice or face? Lilith refused to settle. She answered all these questions within her and took action on the truth she uncovered. Lilith demanded that she be met with what she really desires, and she's here to demand that we all do the same. Wow, I got goosebumps again. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to finish off by just reading this intention. I think it summarizes this energy beautifully. So it says, soul voice meditation. What does the life I truly desire look like? Intention. I am the voice of my body and soul. I choose the life that I desire to live.